Welcome to Zodiac Legends, the myths written in the stars, a podcast where we uncover the ancient myths, histories, and legends woven into the constellations. Today, we begin our journey through the celestial wheel with the 12th and final sign of the zodiac, Pisces. To many, Pisces represents two fish swimming in opposite directions, forever bound together by an invisible cord, a symbol of duality, connection, and transformation. But beneath its familiar image lies a much older story, one that takes us back thousands of years to a time when the world itself was drowning. Long before the Greeks and Romans gave their own meaning to Pisces, this constellation was already deeply significant to the ancient Sumerians and Babylonians. To them it was linked to Ea, the god of wisdom, water, and creation. But why water? And why two fish? The answer may lie in one of the most cataclysmic events in early human history, the Great Flood. Geological evidence suggests that around 7,500 years ago, a dramatic flood reshaped the lands we now know as the Black Sea region. At that time, the Black Sea was a vast freshwater lake, surrounded by fertile valleys where early civilizations thrived. But as the last ice age ended, the world's oceans began to rise. The Mediterranean, swollen with meltwater, finally breached the narrow land bridge at the Bosporus Strait, sending an overwhelming cascade of salt water into the Black Sea basin. Imagine watching as the shoreline receded before your eyes. 4 kilometers of land swallowed every day, a relentless surge of water consuming villages, homes, and fields. For the people who lived through it, it must have seemed like the entire world was ending. And perhaps in a way it was, the world as they knew it. But the survivors carried their story with them, passing it down through generations until it became part of the great myths of humanity. In the ancient Sumerian epic, the flood hero was Ziusudra. The Akkadians called him Atrahasis. The Babylonians knew him as Utnapishtim. The Hebrews told of Noah. The Greeks spoke of Deucalion. Though the names changed, the essence of the story remained the same. A man forewarned of an impending flood, who built a vessel to save his family, animals, and sacred knowledge. In the Epic of Gilgamesh, Utnapishtim describes how he built a vast, cup-shaped ark and filled it with plants, animals, and treasures. As the floodwaters raged for 7 days, he sent out a dove, then a swallow, only for them to return exhausted. On the 9th day, he released a raven, and when it failed to return, he knew land was near. This story, so similar to Noah's sending of the dove, reveals the deep interconnectedness of ancient flood myths. And at the heart of it all, the water, the mixing of salt and fresh, the two fish of Pisces. As time passed, the image of Pisces evolved. The Babylonians associated the constellation with the two waters, the salt water of the seas and the fresh water of the rivers. The star Alresha, which binds the two fish together, symbolized the eternal connection between these forces. For the Greeks, Pisces took on a different meaning, one of transformation and escape. They told the story of Aphrodite and her son, Eros, who were walking along a riverbank when the monstrous Typhon, the bane of the gods, approached. To evade his wrath, they plunged into the river and transformed into two fish, tied together to ensure they would not be separated. The Romans later referred to Pisces as Aquilonius, a name associated with a northern wind that brought rain. Meanwhile, In Judea, Pisces was known as Dagayim, the two fishes, an image that some linked to the joining of the tribes of Simeon and Levi. Later, as Christianity spread, the fish became one of its most important symbols, representing faith and salvation. But Pisces was not only significant in the West. In ancient China, the constellation was part of a very different zodiac system, where it was known as Tseu Isze, or the boar. Unlike in the Greco-Roman world, where Pisces was associated with water, in Chinese astrology, the boar represented endurance, strength, and prosperity. A reminder that while the stars remain the same, their stories change across cultures. There's another reason Pisces is important in astrology. When the zodiac was formalized over 2,500 years ago, the vernal equinox, the moment when day and night are equal, was in Aries. But due to Earth's slow wobble on its axis, known as precession, the equinox has since moved into Pisces. Even though astrologers still call this point the first of Aries, it is in fact in Pisces, a sign of transition. Some believe this marks the age of Pisces, a period of spiritual awakening and religious transformation that began roughly 2,000 years ago. Others look forward to the next great shift, the coming age of Aquarius. But for now, Pisces remains the guardian of the celestial host, the final sign of the zodiac, the place where the cycle ends, only to begin again. From the ancient flood myths of Mesopotamia to the divine transformations of Greece, from the sacred symbols of early Christians to the endurance of the Chinese boar, Pisces has carried many meanings across the millennia. But one theme remains constant. Pisces is a sign of connection between land and sea, past and present, myth and history. And so we close the first chapter of our journey through the zodiac. But the stars hold many more stories. Join me next time as we explore Aries, the ram of the heavens, the warrior of the zodiac, and the herald of a new beginning. If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to follow Mythic Cosmos. Until next time, keep looking up. The myths are written in the stars. Welcome back to Zodiac Legends, the myths written in the stars, the podcast where we explore the legends, myths, and histories woven into the constellations. In this episode, we turn our eyes to the sign of Aries, the ram that once led the celestial flock across the heavens. For over 2,000 years, Aries was the first sign of the zodiac, marking the beginning of the year and the rebirth of the world. Even today, though the stars have shifted, the equinoctial point, the northern spring equinox, is still called the first point of Aries. But Aries is more than just a celestial marker. It is a sign of strength, sacrifice, and heroism. Its stories, spanning from Mesopotamia to Rome, from the deserts of Libya to the mythical lands of the Argonauts. In ancient Mesopotamia, the movement of the sun into Aries marked the start of a new year. To the Babylonians, Aries was known as Mul Hun Ga, meaning hired man. This name was linked to the god Tammuz, a deity of springtime renewal and rebirth. Each year, when Aries rose in the dawn sky during the spring equinox, it signaled a time of change, the rebirth of nature after winter's grasp. The Assyrians saw Aries as more than just a sign of renewal. They called it the altar and the sacrifice. The ram was a sacred offering, its blood spilled in ceremonies to honor the gods. This theme of sacrifice endured for millennia, finding echoes in the Hebrew Passover, where the blood of a lamb was painted on doorways to protect the firstborn from the angel of death during the plagues of Egypt. In pagan Rome, soldiers would sacrifice a ram before battle, offering its life in exchange for victory. Though Aries was a symbol of renewal in Mesopotamia, it took on a new identity when the Greeks reimagined the constellation. By 500 BC, Aries became the sacred ram of Hermes, the very creature that carried the children of King Athamas to safety in the famous legend of the Golden Fleece. The story begins in Boeotia, where King Athamas had taken a new wife, Ino. But Ino despised her stepchildren, Phrixus and Helle, and schemed to have them sacrificed. Before the dreadful act could take place, Hermes sent a magnificent golden-fleeced ram to rescue them. The ram soared through the sky, carrying the children far from danger. But as they crossed the narrow strait between Europe and Asia, Helle lost her grip and plummeted into the waters below. Ever since, that sea has been called the Hellespont, Hell's Sea. Her brother, Phrixus, survived the journey and reached the land of Colchis on the shores of the Black Sea. There, in gratitude, he sacrificed the ram to the gods and placed its golden fleece in the care of a fearsome dragon that never slept. That very fleece would later become the object of Jason's legendary quest, sparking one of the greatest adventures in Greek mythology, the voyage of the Argonauts. But Aries was not only a figure of mythic heroism. In another tale, set in the Libyan desert, a ram led the wandering god Bacchus and his parched followers to a hidden well. As a reward for its service, Bacchus set the ram among the stars, ensuring that whenever the sun passed through Aries, it would mark the arrival of spring, a season of renewal and abundance. The mythology of Aries wasn't confined to Greece and Rome. In the Hebrew zodiac, Aries was linked to one of the 12 tribes of Israel, sometimes assigned to Simeon, other times to Gad. Warrior tribes known for their fierce and untamed nature. Meanwhile, in China, Aries took on a completely different identity. In the traditional Chinese zodiac, Aries corresponds to Qiang Lu, the dog. Unlike the ram of the West, which symbolized leadership and sacrifice, the Chinese dog represented loyalty, vigilance, and protection. Values that, in their own way, resonated with Aries' fiery and determined spirit. Though Aries no longer marks the start of the zodiac, its legacy endures. From 1845 BC to AD 300, the sun moved into Aries at the vernal equinox, symbolizing the rebirth of life after winter. But the slow wobble of Earth's axis, known as precession, eventually shifted this equinoctial point into Pisces, where it remains today. Even so, astrologers still refer to this point as the first of Aries, a tribute to the sign that once led the celestial march of the year. For centuries, Aries stood as a symbol of beginnings, sacrifice, and renewal. It was the first light of the zodiac, the herald of spring, and the ram that guided humanity across myth and time. Even now, As the stars shift and ages change, Aries reminds us that every ending is just the beginning of something new. And so we close another chapter in our journey through the zodiac. But the stars still hold many more stories. Join me next time as we move into the world of Taurus, the steadfast bull, the guardian of the harvest, and the symbol of divine power across civilizations. If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to follow Mythic Cosmos. Until next time, keep looking up. The myths are written in the stars. Welcome back to Zodiac Legends, the myths written in the stars, the podcast where we uncover the myths, legends, and cosmic histories hidden within the constellations. In this episode, we turn our attention to one of the most ancient and revered constellations in the night sky, Taurus, the bull. Taurus is not just one of the 12 zodiac signs. It may be the very first. In the earliest celestial charts, Taurus marked the beginning of the year, reigning over the vernal equinox from 4000 to 1850 BC. This era, known as the Golden Age of archaic astronomy, saw Taurus standing as a celestial beacon of fertility, power, and renewal. Though time has since shifted its position, moving it to the third sign in today's zodiac, the myths of the Great Bull remain as potent as ever. In the ancient Persian creation story, the mighty god Mithra, driver of the sun chariot, captured and sacrificed the primeval bull, the celestial Taurus. But this was no ordinary death. From the slain bull, the life force of nature itself was released. Its marrow became bread, its blood turned into wine, and through its sacrifice, the universe was made fertile. Mithra's influence spread far beyond Persia. By the time of the Roman Empire, he had become the central figure of the Mithraic mystery cult. Worshippers believed that the blood of the sacred bull granted resurrection and redemption, ensuring the eternal cycle of life. Even today, remnants of this belief echo in modern religious traditions. Mithra wasn't just a slayer of the celestial bull. He was also depicted battling a powerful griffin, a creature combining the traits of the zodiac itself. The bull of Taurus, the lion of Leo, the scorpion of Scorpius, and the eagle of Aquila, representing the 4 seasons of the year. This cosmic battle was more than myth. It was a celestial map, tying the cycles of the heavens to the forces of nature. But Taurus wasn't always a victim of the gods. In Greek mythology, Taurus was the very form taken by Zeus in one of his most infamous transformations. Europa, the daughter of King Agenor of Phoenicia, was walking along the shore when she spotted a magnificent white bull among her father's herds. It was no ordinary beast. It was Zeus himself, transformed by divine trickery. Enchanted by its beauty and gentleness, Europa dared to climb onto the bull's back. The moment she did, Zeus charged into the sea, swimming across the waters until they reached Crete. There, he revealed his true form, and Europa became the mother of Minos, the legendary king of Crete. But this union would have far-reaching consequences. Minos' own wife would later give birth to the Minotaur, the half-man, half-bull creature that haunted the labyrinth of Knossos. Some believe that our modern image of the Taurus constellation, showing only the head and forequarters of the bull, comes from this myth. The rest of its body, they say, is hidden beneath the celestial sea, forever swimming toward Crete. Across the ancient world, Taurus was not just a figure of myth, but a god in its own right. In Egypt, the mighty Apis bull was worshipped long before the pyramids rose along the Nile. Its festivals coincided with the annual flooding of the river, a time when the land was reborn with the promise of a bountiful harvest. Apis was not just a bull, he was the embodiment of the river itself, the bringer of life. Meanwhile, in Europe, the ancient Druids held the Tauric festival in honor of the celestial bull. Some believe that the great tors of England, those sacred hilltops, were sites of the ancient Taurin rituals, where the power of the bull was channeled through sacred rites. In China, the stars of Taurus were not seen as a bull, but as part of the Great White Tiger constellation, one of the celestial guardians of the four directions. However, in the Chinese zodiac, Taurus corresponds to a very different creature, the rooster, the 10th sign of their cycle. The rooster, like Taurus, is a symbol of steadfastness, endurance, and the unbreakable rhythm of nature. For thousands of years, Taurus marked the start of the year, but time moves even among the stars. The slow wobble of Earth's axis, precession, has since shifted the vernal equinox away from Taurus. Today, it stands as the 3rd sign of the zodiac, yet its influence is far from over. In the distant future, around AD 2450, the summer solstice will once again move into Taurus. When that time comes, will humanity still look to the bull as a symbol of strength and fertility? Will new myths be written in the stars? Only time will tell. And so, we bring our journey through the bull's legacy to a close. But our exploration is far from over. In our next episode, we move into the realm of Gemini, the sign of the celestial twins, the guardians of sailors, and the bearers of duality and fate. If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to follow Mythic Cosmos. Until next time, keep looking up. The myths are written in the stars. Welcome back to Zodiac Legends, the myths written in the stars, the podcast where we uncover the myths, legends, and cosmic histories hidden within the constellations. And in this episode, we turn our gaze to the heaven's most famous pair, the celestial twins of Gemini. Gemini is the most northerly constellation of the zodiac, lying partly within the Milky Way. Since AD 300, it has been the 4th sign of the zodiac, marking the summer solstice. But long before, the Greeks named its 2 brightest stars, Castor and Pollux. The concept of the heavenly twins had already spread across the world, appearing in myths from Egypt to India, from Rome to China. This is a tale of brotherhood, balance, and cosmic duality. The legend of the heavenly twins is nearly universal. To the early Christians, they were Adam and Eve, or sometimes the twin sons of Rebekah, even David and Jonathan. The Greeks called them the Anases, the divine two gods of Sparta. While to the Romans, they were none other than Romulus and Remus, the legendary founders of Rome. In ancient India, they were Akvini, the two magnificent Ashwins, divine horsemen who rode their golden chariot across the sky at dawn, pulling the light of day behind them. Another Indian name for Gemini was Mithuna, meaning the pair, one boy, one girl, forever united. In Egypt, the twins were Horus the elder and Horus the younger, embodying different aspects of the falcon-headed god. The Arabs knew them as duopavonis, the twin peacocks, while the Chinese saw them as yin and yang, the two great cosmic principles in eternal harmony. As a zodiac sign, however, Gemini was the ape, the ninth sign of the Chinese zodiac. Even in New Zealand, the Maori people recognized them, calling them Wakahu, another celestial pairing forever bound together. There was a time when Gemini held the balance of the world in its hands. Around 9,000 years ago, the vernal equinox, the moment when day and night are equal, was aligned with Gemini. A great celestial line, known as the equinoctial collier, passed between Castor and Pollux, marking the balance between light and dark. Even after Gemini lost its place as the marker of the equinox, the Greeks preserved its legacy in the myth of Castor and Polydeuces, or Pollux, as the Romans called him. The two brothers shared a unique fate, one mortal, one divine. When Castor died, Pollux was heartbroken, but Zeus granted them a strange immortality. They would live on, but never together. As one brother died, the other revived, caught in an endless cycle, just like day and night. Though the twins were famed for their balance, they were also revered as protectors of sailors. In ancient times, ships bore symbols of Castor and Pollux on their masts, believing the brothers would guide them safely through treacherous waters. But the most mysterious sign of the twins' presence was something far more supernatural, an eerie glow in the storm. Sailors spoke of St. Elmo's fire, a glowing plasma that flickered like blue or violet flames at the tips of a ship's mast, or even on the wings of an aircraft. If two lights appeared, it was said to be Castor and Pollux, a promise of safe passage through the storm. But if only one light was seen, it was a terrible omen. The cursed meteor, Helena, the sister of the twins, who had brought destruction to Troy. Even today, St. Elmo's fire remains one of the most mysterious and awe-inspiring natural phenomena, a ghostly reminder that the myths of the past are still very much alive. Though Gemini no longer holds the celestial balance of the equinox, it remains one of the most recognizable constellations in the night sky. Its two bright stars, Castor and Pollux, still shine as reminders of twin souls forever intertwined. And as the summer solstice approaches, the twins rise high in the heavens, watching over the world, their stories written in the stars. And so we close the chapter on Gemini, the twins of the heavens. But our journey is far from over. In our next episode, we descend into the watery depths of Cancer, the sign of the celestial crab, the guardian of the moon, and the keeper of deep and ancient mysteries. If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to follow Mythic Cosmos. Until next time, keep looking up. The myths are written in the stars. Welcome back to Zodiac Legends, the myths written in the stars, the podcast where we uncover the myths, legends, and cosmic histories hidden within the constellations. And in this episode, we turn our attention to the most inconspicuous yet symbolically powerful sign in the zodiac, Cancer, the celestial crab. Though its stars are faint and unremarkable, Cancer has played a profound role in cosmic history. It once held both the vernal equinox and the summer solstice, guiding the heavens for millennia. It was known as the Gate of Men, the portal through which souls descended to earth. It was the scarab of Egypt, the guardian of the underworld, and the silent witness to divine rebirth. Let's journey into the myths and mysteries of Cancer, the dark sign that once ruled the path of the sun. Long ago, from 8,300 to 6,150 BC, Cancer held the vernal equinox, marking the balance between night and day. Later, from 1850 BC to AD 300, it became the home of the summer solstice, the moment when the sun reached its highest point in the sky. At this time, it was said that the sun itself walked like a crab, shifting sideways along the horizon before slowly reversing its course. This movement left a lasting mark on our world. Even today, the latitude where the sun stands directly overhead on the summer solstice is known as the Tropic of Cancer, a name that has endured for over 2,000 years. But why a crab? Some legends say that thousands of years ago, when these stars rose just before dawn, the crabs of the Nile would crawl onto land, as if summoned by the heavens themselves. Others believed that the crab was a symbol of the sun itself, its sideways movement mirroring the sun's own shifting path. Cancer was not just a marker of the sun's journey, it was also the threshold between worlds. The ancient Persians and Platonists called it the Gate of Men, a celestial portal through which souls descended from the heavens into human bodies. Later, in Christian traditions, this same gate was reimagined as the manger, the cosmic birthplace from which the Spirit of God descended into the infant Jesus. This belief connected Cancer not just to life, but to the eternal cycle of death and rebirth. In Coptic Egypt, however, Cancer was something more ominous. With few visible stars, it was called a dark sign, black without eyes. It was associated with Anubis, the jackal-headed god of the underworld, who presided over the weighing of the heart. To the Egyptians, Cancer was not a crab, but a scarab beetle, a sacred symbol of transformation and rebirth. Even in death, there was hope. The scarab pushed its ball of dung, much like the sun rolling across the sky, symbolizing the eternal cycle of renewal. Cancer's most famous myth comes from Greece, where it fought alongside one of the most fearsome monsters of legend, the Hydra. The story goes that Hercules, the greatest of Greek heroes, was locked in battle with the Hydra, a monstrous serpent with 9 regenerating heads. As he struggled against the beast, the goddess Hera, who despised him, sent forth a new adversary, a giant crab scuttling from the swamp to bite at his feet. Hercules, unfazed, crushed the crab beneath his heel. But Hera, ever spiteful, rewarded the creature's loyalty by placing it among the stars. Unlike the Lion of Leo or the mighty Centaur of Sagittarius, Cancer was given a dim and unremarkable place in the heavens. a silent reminder that even the smallest forces can play a role in the great cosmic struggle. While Greece saw Cancer as a crab, other cultures imagined it differently. In ancient Babylonia, it was not a crab at all, but a tortoise, slow and steady, marking the gradual turning of the seasons. Some Eastern zodiacs depicted it as two asses, while the Hebrews assigned it to the tribe of Issachar. In China, Cancer became the sheep, the eighth sign of their zodiac. Here, it represented kindness, patience, and a quiet, unshakable resilience. And perhaps in some way, all these symbols captured different aspects of Cancer's true nature. Small yet enduring, quiet, yet deeply powerful. Though Cancer's stars are dim, their stories burn bright. It was once the gate of men, the bringer of souls, the marker of solstices, and the silent observer of the sun's eternal journey. Today, it is the fifth sign of the zodiac, still whispering its ancient secrets to those who take the time to listen. And so, we close the chapter on Cancer, the celestial gatekeeper. But our journey is far from over. In our next episode, we turn to the bold and regal sign of Leo, the lion of the stars, the golden beast of kings, and the symbol of divine power. If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to follow Mythic Cosmos. Until next time, keep looking up. The myths are written in the stars. Welcome back to Zodiac Legends, the myths written in the stars. The podcast where we uncover the myths, legends, and cosmic histories hidden within the constellations. And today, we turn our gaze to the heavens to meet one of the most powerful and enduring symbols in the zodiac, Leo, the lion. For over 5,000 years, Leo has been associated with kingship, the blazing heat of the sun, and the life-giving floods of the Nile. It is the house of the sun, the sign of Sekhmet's wrath, and the legacy of Hercules' greatest hunt. From the scorching deserts of Egypt to the battlefields of ancient Greece, the lion has always been a creature of strength, fire, and divine power. Let's step into the golden radiance of Leo and uncover the myths and mysteries of the celestial lion. Long before Leo became the lion of Greek myth, it was the sign of the sun's most powerful presence. From 4000 to 1850 BC, the summer solstice, the longest and hottest day of the year, was marked by the sun's passage through Leo. This was the season of searing heat, the time when the great river Nile would rise and overflow, bringing life to the land of Egypt. The Egyptians saw a divine connection between the lion and this life-giving flood. Some believed the sun was born in Leo, making it the sole house of the sun. Even today, astrology preserves this idea, linking Leo with fire, power, and light. To the people of the Nile, the lion-headed fountains and water spouts symbolized this sacred moment: fire and water, destruction and rebirth, the relentless cycle of nature. And with the floods came the lions, emerging from the wilderness, drawn to the river's edge. But this was not just a time of abundance. It was also a time of danger. If the floods failed, it meant famine and death. The balance of life itself seemed to rest in the claws of the celestial lion. No figure embodies Leo's power more than Sekhmet, the lion-headed goddess of Egypt. She was the daughter of Ra, the sun god, and carried his fury upon the earth. She was both protector and destroyer. When at peace, she stood as a regal guardian, embodying royal dignity. But when enraged, she became the Eye of Ra itself, a divine force of scorching destruction. It was said that she could breathe fire, her very presence radiating the dry, blistering winds of the desert. Sekhmet's rage was legendary. According to myth, Ra once sent her to punish humanity, and in her bloodlust, she nearly wiped out all life. Only by tricking her, offering her a drink dyed to look like blood, was she calmed, her fury dissipating into the golden glow of sunset. This dual nature, fire and fertility, war and protection, defined Leo for the Egyptians. It was a symbol of strength and survival, a reminder that power must be wielded with wisdom. For the Greeks, Leo's power was embodied in the Nemean lion, a monstrous beast said to have fallen from the moon like a divine meteor. It was an unkillable terror, its golden hide so tough that no spear or blade could pierce it. When Hercules was given his famous 12 labors, his first task was to slay this impossible beast. He battled the lion for a full month, his weapons useless against its impenetrable skin. Finally, realizing brute force was his only option, Hercules grappled with the lion, locked his arms around its neck, and strangled it with his sheer strength. As a final trophy, he skinned the lion with its own claws and wore its hide as an invincible cloak. Hera, furious yet impressed, lifted the lion's spirit into the sky, where it became the constellation Leo, forever watching over the earth with unyielding power. As time passed, the shape of Leo in the sky shifted. In 240 BC, it lost its magnificent tail when the astronomer priests of Ptolemy III carved a new constellation, Coma Berenices. This was named after Queen Berenice of Egypt, who cut off her hair as an offering to the gods. Her sacrifice was immortalized in the heavens, but at the cost of the lion's flowing mane. Yet Leo's legacy was far older than Ptolemy's time. Some scholars believe it may have once marked the vernal equinox as early as 10,450 BC, though no evidence confirms this. To the Babylonians, the stars of Leo formed Gizmes, the curved weapon. The Greeks saw a great sickle in its shape, a symbol of the harvest, and in China, where lions were unknown, the constellation took on a different form, the horse, the seventh sign of their zodiac. From the golden sands of Egypt to the great myths of Greece, Leo has always stood as a symbol of power, fire, and resilience. It was the sign of Sekhmet's fury, the terror of Hercules' labor, and the ever-burning flame of the sun. Even now, Leo remains the sixth sign of the zodiac, watching over the night sky. And in the far future, in AD 2450, the autumn equinox will move into Leo, marking a new era under the celestial lion's reign. And so we close the chapter on Leo, the radiant beast of the stars. But the zodiac is still full of stories waiting to be told. In our next episode, we dive into the mysteries of Virgo, the goddess of the harvest, the maiden of wisdom, and the eternal seeker of truth. If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to follow Mythic Cosmos. Until next time, keep looking up. The myths are written in the stars. Welcome back to Zodiac Legends, the myths written in the stars. The podcast where we uncover the myths, legends, and cosmic histories hidden within the constellations. And in this episode, we turn our gaze toward Virgo, the celestial maiden. Virgo is one of the oldest and most revered constellations in the zodiac. She is the queen of the harvest, the earth mother, the divine nurturer, whose myths span from the great temples of Mesopotamia to the sacred halls of Egypt, Greece, and Rome. But she is more than just a goddess of grain. Virgo is also the keeper of wisdom, the bearer of divine children, and the guardian of celestial order. She has ruled over the equinoxes and solstices throughout history, and even today her story continues to echo in our collective imagination. Let's step into the mythic fields of Virgo and uncover the stories she has woven into the stars. Virgo has held an important place in the sky for over 14,000 years. She contained the vernal equinox from 12,600 to 10,450 BC, the summer solstice from 6150 to 4000 BC, and since AD 300, she has been home to the autumn equinox. Today she is the seventh sign of the zodiac, a guardian of balance in the heavens. She has gone by many names: Ishtar in Babylon, Aphrodite in Greece, Venus in Rome. But her origins stretch even further back, to Sumerian Astarte, Anatolian Cybele, and the great Isis of the Nile. She is a goddess of love, fertility, war, and wisdom, embodying both the gentle and fierce aspects of divine femininity. To the Babylonians, Virgo was Ishtar, one of the most powerful goddesses of the ancient world. She ruled over love and war, beauty and destruction. Her influence spread from Nineveh to Thebes, from Cyprus to Babylon. She was the original Venus, the goddess who would later become Aphrodite. Ishtar, like Leo's Sekhmet, was linked to the lion. In many depictions, she stands upon a great lion, symbolizing her dominion over both wild nature and human civilization. But she was also a goddess of renewal. She descended into the underworld, much like Persephone of Greek myth, only to rise again, bringing fertility back to the land. The Greeks and Romans later associated Virgo with Demeter, the harvest goddess, or her daughter Persephone, who spent half the year in the underworld and half in the world of the living. In this way, Virgo became a symbol of both life and the inevitable cycles of death and rebirth. In Egypt, Virgo was closely tied to Isis, the great mother goddess. Eratosthenes, the Greek scholar, identified her with the Virgo depicted in the temple zodiacs of Dendera and Thebes. She is often shown holding ears of wheat in her hand, wheat that, according to legend, she dropped as she ascended to the heavens. These scattered grains became the Milky Way, a celestial reminder of her divine nourishment. But Isis was more than a harvest goddess. She was the mother of Horus, the divine child. She cradled him in her arms, just as Virgo holds a star in the sky. This image persisted through time, and by AD 1200, it reappeared as the Virgin Mary holding the infant Jesus. Virgo, the celestial maiden, had become an icon of purity and divine motherhood. Virgo's connection to the land is undeniable. The Greeks called her the Queen of the Harvest because her stars rose just before dawn during the time of reaping. To the Romans, she was Ceres, the goddess of grain, and it is from her name that we get the word cereal. The Persians called her Kosha, meaning the ear of wheat, while to the Hebrews, she was Bethula, which signified abundance in harvest. She was the celestial reminder that nature's gifts must be gathered in time, that patience yields bounty, and that the earth will always provide if we honor its rhythms. Like all constellations, Virgo's formsome has shifted across cultures. In the Chinese zodiac, she is not a maiden, but a serpent, the sixth sign. Her influence stretched far beyond Mesopotamia and Greece, ruling over lands such as Arcadia, Caria, Ionia, Rhodes, and the Doric plains. She was the silent guardian of fields and civilization, watching over the rise and fall of empires. Even today, her presence is unmistakable. The brightest star in Virgo, Spica, still shines as the ear of wheat in her hand, a beacon in the night sky. Virgo, the celestial maiden, has worn many faces: warrior and mother, harvest queen and divine virgin. She has ruled over the heavens and walked the lands of mortals, leaving her mark in myth and memory. She is the promise of renewal, the balance between earth and sky, and the eternal reminder that wisdom, patience, and devotion always bear fruit. That brings us to the end of today's episode. But the zodiac is far from finished. Next time, we journey into the depths of Libra, the scales of balance, the seat of justice, and the bridge between light and shadow. If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to follow Mythic Cosmos. Until next time, keep looking up. The myths are written in the stars. Welcome back to Zodiac Legends, the myths, written in the stars, the podcast where we uncover the myths, legends, and cosmic histories hidden within the constellations. And today, we turn our attention to Libra, the celestial scales, the only inanimate symbol in the zodiac. At first glance, Libra may seem like a simple constellation, a quiet space between Virgo and Scorpius, but its history is anything but still. Libra's scales have weighed the fates of empires, measured the passage of time, and symbolized the delicate balance between light and darkness, justice and judgment, life and death. Was Libra truly created by the Romans, or did its scales exist long before in the celestial myths of Egypt and Babylonia? And why did the Greeks initially see only the claws of the scorpion instead of a separate sign? Let's unravel the mysteries of Libra, the balance that holds the heavens together. Libra, as we know it today, is simply a pair of scales. But this was not always the case. Ancient depictions often showed a figure, a god or goddess, holding the scales. So why did the human figure disappear? Some believe it was because of the transmission of astrology through the Arab world. In Islam, creating images of divine beings was considered unlawful. So only the scales remained. By the time astrology was reintroduced to Europe after the Dark Ages, Libra had already been transformed into the inanimate balance we know today. Yet despite its current form, Libra has always been tied to the divine. The hands that once held it have shaped civilizations and cosmic order alike. Interestingly, the Greeks did not originally recognize Libra as a separate constellation. Instead, it was part of Scorpius, known as Chele, the scorpion's claws. It was the Romans who split the sign, creating Libra. But why? Legend has it that in 46 BC, Julius Caesar, along with his scribe Flavius and the astronomer Sosigenes of Alexandria, designated Libra as its own sign. For the Romans, Libra was the embodiment of justice, balance, and order, values at the heart of their empire. The equinox once lay within Libra, making it a celestial marker of perfect balance between night and day. As Virgil wrote in Georgics, when Libra makes the hours of day and night equal, and now divides the globe in the middle between light and shades. Some say that Libra was introduced not for Caesar, but for Emperor Augustus as a sign of his divine right to rule. Medals were even struck, showing Augustus holding the scales of justice, an emperor weighing the fate of his people. But the Romans were not the first to associate the scales with justice. In Greek mythology, Libra was connected to Astrea, the goddess of justice and purity. She was often depicted holding a set of scales, symbolizing her role as the celestial judge of humanity. Even earlier, in Egypt, the scales belonged to Maat, the goddess of truth and cosmic order. In the Hall of Judgment, she weighed the hearts of the dead against a single feather. If a heart was too heavy with sin, the soul would be devoured by Amit, the devourer of the dead. To the Egyptians, Libra's presence in the sky ensured the stability of the universe, Maat's cosmic laws governing all of existence. While Rome formalized Libra, the concept of celestial scales existed long before. The Hebrews, Arabs, Assyrians, Persians, and the people of the Indus Valley all had depictions of the balance. The Persian name for Libra, Tara-Azuk, literally means the scales, and their zodiac showed a divine figure holding a balance in one hand and a lamb in the other. This lamb wasn't just a symbol of sacrifice, it was an ancient unit of weight, representing precise measurement. In China, Libra was originally associated with a crocodile or a dragon before evolving into Tianqing, the celestial balance, the fifth sign of their solar zodiac. It was also called Shou Xing, the star of longevity, reflecting a belief that balance was the key to a long life. In medieval times, Libra's connection to justice took on a darker meaning. The Scorpion, Libra's celestial neighbor, rose in the twilight sky at the hottest time of the year, a time when plagues would sweep through the land. This eerie association led people to believe that Scorpius held Libra's scales to weigh who would live and who would die. It was said that only when the archer, Sagittarius, rose in the sky would the darkness be driven away. Libra's balance had shifted, its role now intertwined with fate, death, and the unforgiving hand of nature. Despite its transformations over the centuries, Libra has remained a symbol of balance, fairness, and cosmic order. It has ruled over Italy, especially Rome, and influenced countless myths and legends. Even today, Libra continues to mark equilibrium, the tipping point between light and darkness. And though its human figure may have vanished, the hands of gods, emperors, and cosmic forces still seem to hold its scales in the vast night sky. That brings us to the end of today's episode, but the Zodiac's journey isn't over yet. Next time we delve into the depths of Scorpius, the sign of power, passion, and destruction. If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to follow Mythic Cosmos. Until next time, keep looking up, The myths are written in the stars. Welcome back to Zodiac Legends, the myths, written in the stars, the podcast where we uncover the myths, legends, and cosmic histories hidden within the constellations. Today we meet the ninth sign of the zodiac, Scorpius, the slayer of the giant, and discover its deep ties to war, rebirth, celestial warfare, and timeless myth. Scorpius, one of the most radiant constellations in the Milky Way, has a long and complex history. Once the largest sign in the zodiac, it was originally seen as a double sign, the Scorpion and the Chele, the Scorpion's claws. But the Romans transformed the Chele into a new constellation entirely, Libra, the scales. Some speculate this suggests the original zodiac had just 6 double signs. Though there's no solid evidence for that, it does highlight how ancient and transformative Scorpius has been. To most ancient cultures, the stars of Scorpius formed a scorpion, a symbol of danger, death, and power. But others saw serpents or dragons. In China, these stars were once part of the mighty azure dragon, a noble creature representing the east and spring. Over time, the stars of Scorpius were reimagined again and again. During Confucius's time, they became Tahu, the great fire, symbolized by Antares and the scorpion's body, and Xingkong, the divine temple, the scorpion's tail. When Jesuit missionaries arrived, they called this celestial creature Tian He, the celestial scorpion. Yet in the traditional Chinese zodiac, Scorpius corresponds not to a scorpion, but the hare. Scorpius's ancient significance stems partly from its role in tracking time. Around 4000 BC, the autumn equinox fell within its borders, lasting until about 1850 BC, or 45 BC if you include the Chele. To early civilizations along the Euphrates, this shift marked the sun's decline. They pictured Scorpius as a scorpion man carrying a lamp, ushering in the darkness of winter. For the Phoenicians, Scorpius was an omen of the sun's dimming power, a sign of approaching scarcity and danger. A contrast to the Pleiades, which represented spring and abundance. As one rose, the other fell. To sailors, the setting of Scorpius heralded violent storms, but to medieval alchemists, it held divine potential. They believed that only while the sun passed through Scorpius could yet iron be transformed into gold. In astrology, Scorpius was seen as fruitful, yet feared. It governed the genitals and carried intense, Mars-like energy. The tail and sting of the scorpion were ruled by Mars, violent, passionate, and destructive. But the Chele, now part of Libra, were ruled by Venus, symbolizing love, union, and balance. In ancient geopolitical astrology, Scorpius was believed to rule over Carthage, Libya, Egypt, Sardinia, and nearby islands. In the Hebrew zodiac, it was linked to the tribe of Dan. In today's star maps, Scorpius is accompanied by a curious twist, the 13th constellation along the ecliptic, Ophiuchus, the serpent bearer. As a result, The sun only spends about 9 days in Scorpius. The rest of the time, often attributed to Scorpius, is actually spent in Ophiuchus. And now, to a legend that binds them all, the myth of Orion and the Scorpion. Orion, the giant hunter, was loved by the gods, but cursed by his arrogance. One night after drinking with the gods, he boasted he could kill every beast on earth. His words were overheard by Artemis, the goddess of the hunt, who, furious at his disrespect for nature, sought revenge. She allied with Mother Earth, and together they summoned a deadly champion, the Scorpion. On a clear midwinter night in the southern hemisphere, you can see a dark rift cutting across the brightest part of the Milky Way. What ancient people believed was the hole the Scorpion tore through the heaven on its descent. It found Orion and stung him. The great hunter fell. But his story did not end there. Asclepius, the son of Apollo and founder of medicine, found Orion's body. Trained by the wise centaur Chiron, Asclepius had learned how to bring back the dead. He attempted to resurrect Orion. But Zeus, angered by this defiance of divine law, struck Asclepius down. Later, out of love for Orion, the gods immortalized him as a constellation. But Artemis was not finished. She placed her scorpion in the sky opposite Orion. To this day, the two remain locked in celestial chase. When Orion rises in the night sky, Scorpius has already set. And when Scorpius rises, Orion vanishes. This cosmic dance encoded seasonal knowledge. In New Zealand, when Orion shines, it's summer, long warm days. When Scorpius reigns overhead, it's winter, cold and still. When they both hover near the horizon, one rising as the other sets, the seasons are about to change. Ancient skywatchers passed this story down not just for entertainment, but as a way to remember equinoxes, solstices, and nature's rhythms. Even today, this tale of pride, punishment, and immortal legacy reminds us of the deep connection between myth and environment. And in the year 2450 AD, the winter solstice will return to Scorpius, marking the darkest time in the north and the height of summer in the southern lands of Aotearoa. So the next time you look up and spot the Scorpion crawling through the sky, remember, it is no ordinary creature. It is the goddess's revenge, the bearer of change, and the slayer of the giant. Thanks for listening, and join us next time as we follow the stars to the archer, Sagittarius. If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to follow Mythic Cosmos. Until next time, keep looking up. The myths are written in the stars. Welcome back to Zodiac Legends, the myths written in the stars, the podcast where we uncover the myths, legends, and cosmic histories hidden within the constellations. Today, we travel into one of the most radiant regions of the Milky Way, the realm of the Archer. This is the story of Sagittarius, the 10th sign in the zodiac. Known today as a centaur drawing his bow, Sagittarius is more than just a mythic archer. He is a symbol of change, of light overcoming darkness, and a guardian of celestial secrets stretching back over 5,000 years. In the brilliant belt of stars that neighbors Scorpius, Sagittarius holds his place, poised, alert, and eternally aiming. But this wasn't always his form. In the ancient skies of Persia, the stars of Sagittarius were simply known as Kaman, the bow. In Turkey, they were called Yay, in Syria Keshta, and in the Hebrew tradition Kesheth. All of these names point to the same ancient image, not a centaur, but a sacred bow and arrow suspended in the heavens. Even in the Chaldean skies, it was Kertko, the archer's sacred weapon. In India, over 3,000 years ago, these stars formed the image of a horseman, a warrior. Later, they came to be known as Dhanus, which also means the bow. Egypt, too, saw different meanings in these stars. Initially representing the graceful ibis bird, the constellation eventually transformed in the zodiac of Dendera into a lion-faced archer. And to the Chinese, these stars once embodied the fierce and noble tiger. Such diversity speaks volumes of the archer's deep, mythic roots. But despite all these forms, one truth remains. Sagittarius marks the moment where darkness begins to retreat. Since around 300 AD, the northern winter solstice, the darkest time of the year, has fallen within Sagittarius. And from that point onward, the days begin to lengthen again. The archer, it seems, has always pointed toward hope. Let's now turn the clock back 5,000 years. Imagine this: as the spring sun set in Taurus, the stars of Sagittarius rose in the east. In the Assyrian royal standard, an archer, Sagittarius, is depicted standing over a bull. This image wasn't just symbolic, it was cosmic. The archer represented Ahura Mazda, the light bringer and god of wisdom. His twin, Ahriman, a dark figure associated with chaos, was symbolized by Taurus, the bull. As Sagittarius rose, he would chase the bull into the underworld, just as the forces of good would drive back the shadows of night. Yet this duality also gave rise to a deeper transformation. Originally drawn as a hybrid figure, half man, half bull, the archer would eventually morph into a centaur, half man, half horse. And here, myth began to solidify. The idea of the centaur may have emerged from a cultural collision. When early horseback warriors arrived in regions unfamiliar with horses, they must have looked otherworldly, like creatures with the torsos of men and the legs of animals. Centaurs, beings of wild nature and primal wisdom, were born in the minds of those who witnessed them, and among them, one centaur stood apart, Chiron. In Greek mythology, Sagittarius is often identified with Chiron, the kindest and wisest of all centaurs, a healer, a teacher, and a friend to the gods. His fate, however, was tragic. One day, Hercules, parched with thirst, drank from a sacred jar of wine belonging to the centaurs. They attacked in rage. Hercules fought back, and in the confusion struck Chiron with a poisoned arrow. By accident. Immortal, Chiron could not die, but the pain was unbearable. In mercy, Zeus allowed him to pass, and honored him by placing him among the stars. Thus Chiron the archer watches over us, still. But there is another tale. Crotus, son of the wild god Pan and the muse's nurse Eupheme, is also linked to this sign. Crotus was a paradox, a skilled hunter who adored the arts, raised by the muses and beloved for his cheer. His applause invented clapping, and his love of poetry shaped legend. Sagittarius, then, becomes a bridge between the wildness of nature and the refinement of inspiration. Look up at the night sky, and you'll see Sagittarius eternally aiming his arrow straight at the heart of the Scorpion. Antares, the red star that glows like blood. It's more than a cosmic coincidence. The Archer and the Scorpion are opposites in every sense. Light and dark, summer and winter, rebirth and death. For 2,000 years, the winter solstice has belonged to Sagittarius. As the Archer rises in the pre-dawn hours, the darkness of Scorpius retreats. The days lengthen, the light returns. Sagittarius, then, becomes not only the slayer of shadows, but the herald of hope. But in some traditions, Sagittarius wasn't always so benevolent. To the Chaldeans, he was a war god, fierce and vengeful, and perhaps rightly so. A hunter is never without danger. Light can be blinding, just as darkness can be comforting. It depends on where you stand, and in a world where myth was law, even hope could be double-edged. Still, Sagittarius has long been seen as a fortunate sign, ruled by Jupiter, planet of wisdom, expansion, and abundance. It's a sign of travelers, seekers, philosophers, those who look not just at the stars, but beyond them. In the ancient world, Sagittarius ruled over lands of myth and mystery, Crete, Latium, and Trinacria. The island once shaped like a three-legged goddess. He was the bearer of the southwest wind, the harbinger of harvests, and even known as Diane Sidus, the star of Diana, the wild goddess of moonlight and mystery. So when you next look to the night sky and see that graceful Archer, know that he's not just a centaur. He's a keeper of legends, a light bringer, a traveler between worlds. He reminds us that darkness does not last forever. The Archer draws his bow, and with it, releases the dawn. Thanks for listening, and join us next time as we follow the stars to the Capricorn. If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to follow Mythic Cosmos. Until next time, keep looking up. The myths are written in the stars. Welcome back to Zodiac Legends, the myths, written in the stars, the podcast where we uncover the myths, legends, and cosmic histories hidden within the constellations. Today, we travel into Capricorn. When you look up at the stars on a cold winter night, you might find yourself staring into one of the most ancient, most misunderstood figures in the sky, Capricorn. A goat with a fish's tail, a creature of mountain peaks and ocean depths. At first glance, it seems like a contradiction, but in the zodiac, Capricorn is anything but random. This is the 11th sign of the zodiac, and it carries within it a tide of stories, stretching from Babylon to Greece, from solar myths to catastrophic prophecies. Today, we follow the sea goat across cultures and centuries to uncover the secrets of this enigmatic constellation. The image of Capricorn, as we know it, part goat, part fish, has deep roots. One of the oldest depictions comes from Babylon, where the creature was associated with the god Ea, or Enki. Ea was no ordinary deity. His upper half was human, his lower half the tail of a fish. He rose from the sea to bring knowledge, writing, law, and civilization to humanity. In this form, Capricorn wasn't just a constellation. It was a bridge between land and sea, between chaos and order, between the known and the mysterious. In those times, Capricorn was known by many names. The Romans called it Neptuni proles, Neptune's offspring. Others named it Pelagi, the ocean storm, or Imbrifer, the rain bringer. Why so many watery names? Because from about 1850 BC to 300 AD, the winter solstice occurred in Capricorn. It marked the beginning of the storm season, the time of rains, of floods, of the sun's apparent death and rebirth. But in Greece, a new story emerged. The god Zeus, in his infancy, was hidden away to escape the wrath of his father Cronus. There, he was nursed by a divine goat, Amaltheia. When the sun entered Capricorn, it was said that Zeus, symbolized by the sun, was nourished by this sacred goat. And in gratitude, Zeus turned one of her horns into the cornucopia, the horn of plenty, filled with endless abundance. Even the name Capricorn hints at this myth. Cornu means horn. Copia means plenty. So Capricorn becomes more than just a sea-goat. It becomes a symbol of prosperity rising from hardship, of nourishment in the dead of winter. The symbolism deepens. The sign of Capricorn is tied to the Tropic of Capricorn, named so because 1,500 years ago, the sun stood directly overhead in Capricorn at the solstice. Although precession has since shifted the solstice into Sagittarius, the name stuck. At the solstice, the sun is lowest in the sky, but also begins its slow return. The days grow longer, and light reclaims the world. In the east, Capricornus was known as the southern gate of the sun. To the Egyptians, it presided over the hottest, most barren time of the year, just before the Nile's life-giving floods. And yet it was essential, for it marked the threshold before renewal. The constellation is also linked with Saturn, the slow, stern planet of time, discipline, and finality. Capricorn is Saturn's house. The ancient astrologers believed that souls ascended to the heavens through Capricorn, which they called the gate of the gods. And so, it also became associated with Vesta, the goddess of the hearth, and was seen as the mansion of kings. Roman emperors like Augustus and Vespasian were born under this sign. And then, there's Pan, the goat god of the wild. When the monstrous Typhon attacked the gods, Pan leapt into the Nile to escape. In his panic, he transformed, but only halfway. The part above the water became a goat. The part submerged turned into a fish. Thus the sea-goat was born, not as a planned creature, but as an accident of fear and transformation. In some tellings, it's not even Pan, but Dionysus, Bacchus, god of the vine, who becomes Capricorn. In every version we find a theme of duality, earth and sea, wildness and wisdom, fear and survival. Capricornus also became a vessel for prophecy. The Babylonian astrologer Sargon, writing over 5,000 years ago, claimed that one day all the planets, including the sun and moon, would align in Capricorn. When that happened, he said, the world would burn in a great conflagration, a doomsday hidden in daylight. Though that exact alignment has yet to come, the Chinese did record a 5-planet conjunction in Capricorn in 2449 BC. But perhaps the most poetic version of Capricorn is in the stars themselves. The brightest stars of the constellation form a simple, elegant curve, like a horn. Known as the Buchan horn, it's a celestial reminder of the cornucopia, of nourishment and resilience in the harshest season. While the Greeks saw a goat, the Chinese saw an ox, a beast of burden, a creature that labors through hard times and emerges with strength. Capricorn stands as a paradox, a creature that defies natural order, a sign that begins in the depths of winter, yet represents growth, order, and abundance. A starry symbol of perseverance and quiet power, and in a way, isn't that what we all hope to become? Thanks for joining us on Zodiac Legends. If this tale of the sea-goat moved you, be sure to check out the other signs in the night sky, and remember, the stars have more stories to tell. Thanks for listening, and join us next time as we follow the stars to the Aquarius. If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to follow Mythic Cosmos. Until next time, keep looking up. The myths are written in the stars. From the first flickers of starlight to the ancient flood myths carved in clay, from gods and kings to peacocks and well buckets, we arrive now, at last, to the final gate in the great wheel of the sky. Welcome to the 12th and final episode of Zodiac Legends, the myths written in the stars. Today we conclude our journey through the constellations with Aquarius, the water bearer, a sign of mystery, transformation, and promise. In the ancient skies, when the stars of Aquarius rose just before dawn, what astronomers call the heliacal rising, it signaled the coming of the rainy season. For civilizations dependent on rivers and fertile soil, this was no ordinary alignment. It was a celestial omen of survival and abundance. To the Greeks and Romans, Aquarius was more than a sign. It was a symbol of divine generosity. Some saw in it Zeus, king of the gods, pouring life-giving water upon the earth. Others envisioned Ganymede, the beautiful shepherd boy Zeus carried to Olympus, where he became the cup-bearer of the gods. In some Roman zodiacs, this figure transformed into a peacock, Juno's sacred bird, as the sun passed through Aquarius during her sacred month of Gamaliel, aligning this sign with the Queen of the Heavens herself. But not all cultures saw a figure. In Arabia, religious beliefs forbade the depiction of human forms. Instead, Aquarius was known as Al-Dalw, the well bucket. Still, the essence remained the same, a bringer of water, of renewal, of life. Aquarius was the gatekeeper of the cosmic sea. Its influence touched not only its own stars, but also neighboring watery constellations, Capricornus, Gaitus, Pisces, Delphinus, and Pisces Austrinus. These signs all floated near the winter sun, when rains fell and rivers swelled. In Babylon, Aquarius was called Gu, the overflowing jar. Its rising was tied to the story of the Great Flood, a tale that echoes through cultures from Mesopotamia to the Hebrews, where Aquarius represents Reuben, the firstborn son of Jacob. The Akkadians knew Aquarius as the Lord of Canals, a title with powerful meaning in lands defined by their rivers. While some once believed this title referred to the Nile, the time doesn't quite match. More likely, it echoed the ancient irrigation canals of the Tigris and Euphrates, lifelines of Mesopotamia. Even the Egyptians knew Aquarius by a sacred name, Monius. The famed astronomer Garrett Serviss once wrote that the ancients believed Aquarius caused the Nile to rise by plunging his urn into its waters. If true, this legend reaches back to 19,000 BC, perhaps even further, into a time before recorded history. In China, Aquarius was known as Huan Ying, the dark warrior, a symbol of strength and the imperial spirit. During the reign of Emperor Tehun Hin, a great flood swept the land. Aquarius was associated with Pao Ping, the precious vase, a name given after the arrival of Jesuit astronomers who saw reflections of their own heavens in the Chinese sky, and in the Chinese zodiac, the stars of Aquarius were linked to the rat, the first sign of their cycle, the clever and quick-witted leader of the 12. Today we know Aquarius as the 12th sign of the Western zodiac, but one day soon, celestially speaking, it will become the first. Because in AD 2450, as the vernal equinox moves from Pisces to Aquarius, we will enter what many have called the Age of Aquarius, a time of new beginnings, enlightenment, and unity. Or so we hope. Some say this era is already upon us. Others believe it is yet to come. In ancient texts, from the Babylonian astrologer Sargon, later translated by Berosus, it was said that the end of the world would come when all the planets, including the sun and moon, converged in Capricorn. But if there is a new beginning to be had, a rebirth, perhaps it lies just one step beyond, in Aquarius, where water cleanses, renews, and flows. And so we end, not with destruction, but with the water-bearer's gift, a promise of rain, of renewal, of life, returning after darkness. Thank you for traveling through the stars with us. From the charging ram of Aries to the generous stream of Aquarius, we have seen gods rise, lovers fall, monsters awaken, and heroes become stars. This is the end of the Zodiac Legends podcast, the myths written in the stars. But as long as we look up and wonder, the stories never really end. Until next time, keep your eyes on the skies and your myths close to heart.